Buddy,
Hey.
we're back with new lights and fancy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're very excited about it.
The lights aren't perfect, but we're getting there. I need to fiddle with them. We got some questions today we're going to answer, though.
Yep, we're going to go nuts on questions. So this first question is, if the terrifying nature of the Titanrealms is what prevents various pantheons from attacking them en masse, what prevents the Titan avatars from doing the same to the gods? Do the Overworlds and Underworlds have similar built-in defenses?
Nothing protects the realms, per se. The reason that the gods can't just do assault on the Titan realm is because their own realm is getting assaulted. And so they need to be there defending it instead of like running off to always fight the Titan realm. So it's war. So there's times that are good to attack and times that are bad to attack.
And conversely, Titans can attack the Pantheon en masse, but when they do that, then people will be able to come behind their defenses and maybe bind some of them. They don't want that.
Right.
So, I mean, just like anytime you have a war, very seldom are you going to have all the forces do a frontal attack at the same time because that leaves holes in your defense.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense war-wise. You want to strategically plan when the good attack is, and when it's a good attack, you want to send a lot of your forces, but not all of your forces.
Yeah, the gods are besieged, but it's not like a classical siege because they're also trying to rebind the Titans. So the Titans aren't just coming at it from a position of there's nothing they're going to do to us.
Right.
So, and because Titans are more powerful than gods, they can look like they're kind of insurmountable, but gods have, purview avatars, they have incredible powers themselves. Titans that just run into the middle of an overworld face similar danger to gods that run into the middle of the Titan realm. Also,
when the gods are defending their home, they have the ability to use those purview avatars without the Titan realm kind of absorbing them, if you would.
Exactly. So it's, when they make the gods come to them in the Titan realm, then they know that the gods can't use their avatars. The same is not true if they go to the Overworld or the Underworld to attack them.
Pretty much in games, every time a Titan has come to an Overworld by themselves, they kind of get curb stomped.
Yeah, or they do some damage and then they retreat because it wasn't really about winning, it was just about like a strike.
Right. But the only times we've bound anything has been, they've been out of their realm attacking Overworld.
Yeah, that's the only time we've had a few really get bound.
Yeah.
So yeah, the same reason that you would not do that if you were fighting Mortal War. It's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, second question is, why do relics bite when they're not bound to you? There seem to be lots of myths where people take each other's weapons and use them, and I can't name anywhere that's actually hurt that person unless there was a curse involved.
Okay, so the stories we already have, that is because that relic was a part of that person's story. Like, there's never a story where someone picks up someone else's weapon that's not actually part of their story instead of part of the other person's.
Yeah, you can do this with weapons that don't matter, but like nobody picks up like the Gibolga and uses it when Kukulane is using it. Like, because the Gibolga is part of Kukulane's legend itself.
Yeah.
You could pick up like Kukulane's sword and use it because it's probably not a relic, it's probably just a sword he carries around.
Yeah, there's not...
Or that might be a bad example.
There's not stories of people picking up other people's relic weapons or items or anything. That just doesn't happen.
I think there are occasional stories where they lend them.
But when they lend them, that's the giving of the relic. Like, then it's that new person's, for that person's story.
And I mean, remember that there are magic spells that can both unbind and rebind relics, so if someone takes a weapon and uses it for like what looks like a story, that was probably actually bound to them if it's an actual relic.
Yes.
If it's not just a weapon that they have that doesn't actually do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And more to the point, system-wise, relics need to be bound to their owners. They can't be just used by anyone because that makes them ridiculously, insanely powerful and no one can have them. And why isn't everyone using everyone's relics all the time?
Right, otherwise everybody's just throwing all relics around all the time.
Yeah, like, why doesn't Hephaestus make 10 million relics and just everybody, like, catch can and uses them constantly and throws them back and forth? Like, it becomes... The point of the relics...
Relics lose their meaning.
Yeah, they're supposed to be part of your story, part of your legend. And so you don't want to have a bunch of other people using Mjolnir. You want Thor using Mjolnir because it's part of Thor's legend, not everyone else's.
Yeah.
And if it becomes part of everybody's legend, then it becomes meaningless. It might as well be a normal relic that just has... A normal weapon that just has some powers. No one cares about it anymore.
Right.
So, third question. How do you deal with gods that have unique powers that don't seem to fit into any of the purviews? The best examples I have are Shiva's Destructo-Eye or Shiva and Kali doing destructive dances where they dance and the world falls apart. How do those things work in your system?
Well, those are all pretty crazy things that are very rare. So when something happens that's very, very rare like that, then it's usually an avatar or ultimate of some variety.
Yeah, you could definitely say that about Shiva and Kali's destructive dancing. Like, they are actually doing an event. The dance itself is not like some kind of a power that they don't normally have, but they may be dancing while using level 10 chaos or their chaos avatars. They maybe
or dancing so strongly that when they stomp, the world shatters.
Exactly. You know, Kali has ultimate strength. She may just pop her ultimate strength, and then when she dances, everything she dances on falls apart. That's how that works. Or even just she has 10 alchemic strength. She doesn't need to pop her ultimate to start making mountains fall down when she stomps. If you go, actually, we've addressed Shiva's third eye before. It's in our purviews. It's in our relic birthright supplement on the download page. We make it a relic that he has, so it has specific powers and he can use it. Sometimes those things are just birthrights. If they're like a specific item or body part that is attached to them, you can often stat that up as a birthright.
Poco's missing leg.
Exactly,
like
that's a maiming, and things that are like that. So it depends on exactly what it is. Every god, like not every god, but a lot of gods have something that's a little weird, doesn't quite fit the system as far as you couldn't say this is them using a boon that already exists. But most of the time, you can either represent that as a birthright, or you can say they're doing something with their ultimate god powers in this particular case. So you don't really have to... There doesn't need to be a boon that does everything. That's what ultimates are for. Alright, fourth question. How would you represent Diomedes in Scion? Given that he's Mr. I'm totally a mortal man, but I'm so badass that I fuck up Scions and gods alike, and Athena made me a god when I died. I mean, he got into a fight with Ares and kicked his ass. It's time to have our conversation about how the Greek gods love to use Avatar again. It is, and we will continue. Just say.
We've addressed the Ares thing before.
Yeah, and it's very similar to the Athena and Arachne thing, or any other time a Greek god has a direct competition with a mortal. It's because they have valor, and they will use their Avatar birthright to shrink their legend down.
They don't want to beat the mortal because they have god powers. They want to beat the mortal because they are actually so much better than the mortal that even on the same footing, they win.
Yeah, I mean, if you just beat the mortal because you're a god, I mean, it's like cheating. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, obviously you're going to beat the mortal. He's like a fly. But, and again, if Ares is going to actually go fight in the Trojan War, what would he go in at? First of all, he's been forbidden to actually go in as a god and fight in the Trojan War, because the Trojan War would be, like, over instantly because he would just destroy the other side, and Zeus said you can't do that. No one interfering in the Trojan War. The whole Trojan War is a saga of gods interfering in a war that they've been told they're not allowed to interfere in. So he can't go do things at his normal power level anyway. But when Zeus or Ares wants to go in and actually fight in a war, if he wants to actually fight in a war instead of just clearing the battlefield in 10 minutes and going home, he's going to have to drop his power level, because otherwise it's going to not mean anything. It won't be fun. And so Ares is probably avatared down when he fights Diomedes. Does not make Diomedes less awesome. Diomedes is very awesome. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Ares is not normally.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good specific example about why not everyone needs to be a Scion. You don't need to go through history and make every single person that ever did anything cool a Scion. Because people can do cool stuff. That's a big part of myth, is that people can still do cool stuff.
Yeah, when you're on a hero level, or not a hero level, a human level of things that are happening, humans can be great. Sometimes humans just are great. It's not often, and they can't actually compete with legendary things on a legendary level. But if the legendary things come to fight on a human level, sometimes the human can win, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, humans, most of the time we think of them as not mattering because they're kind of babies, they can't do anything to higher legend people, but they do matter on a human level.
The Athena turning him into a god, don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of deification in Greek and Roman myth, and sometimes it's legit and sometimes it's not. It's really a storyteller decision whether you think that's a real thing. You could also say that Diomedes is a legendary mortal, and that's why he gets to do all this stuff normal mortals don't do. But honestly, it's really a flavor decision. It doesn't matter much for the world itself.
Yeah, it depends on the ST in their world.
Diomedes definitely isn't a god. Like, you can't just turn someone into a god who is actually just a human. So that didn't happen. So if you're going to say he became a god, then he would have needed to already be in some way legendary.
Yeah. Greek myth plays a little bit with the idea that deification can happen by getting to Olympus.
Yeah,
like Olympus is a giant relic that if you somehow are able to scale Olympus, then you become a god.
They do, although the vast majority of those cases, that person already had divine blood in the first place.
Yes.
Diomedes doesn't. He's just a human guy. But you know, as a storyteller, especially if you're running heavy Greek and you want to play with the idea of there being a less defined line for them between human and divine, you can. Science system doesn't provide for... People aren't going to be gods unless they're legendary to begin with. So Diomedes, we would probably not make a god ever. We would say that's an awesome thing that was added to his legend because he was so cool in the Trojan War when he's like wounding people that are gods and fighting against actual Scions. Like that's a major thing. But he's not actually a god. And I mean, what is he god of? Just because it says Athena made him a god, like, he's not a god of anything, he doesn't do anything, he doesn't have a cult worship, he is not actually a god of anything.
Cool.
Alright. I've been doing some admittedly small amount of research into the Orisha. Is courage really a valid virtue for them? They talk a big game, but most of their conflicts are tricks and pranks rather than fighting against monsters. And at the same time, they seem to highly value intellect, especially Deva.
Okay, I think that if you do basic reading, the most obtainable texts are mostly about the tricksters, and so that's why it might seem like that.
Yeah, like you won't find a lot of Eshu actually fighting anything,
right?
Because he doesn't do that.
But pretty much everyone else is just war against you, and then war against you, and I hate you, and I'm fighting you.
If you look at Shango, Ogun, is the other one that is it the high level Oduduwa, the big African king ones. They are just an endless stream of wars. They are constantly conquering nearby kingdoms, fighting nearby kings.
Fighting each other.
Ogun is like a Reestrad machine and nobody wants to get near him. And that doesn't necessarily mean everyone has courage, but that's a lot of people that do that thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of myths where like someone pisses off one of the Orisha and then it's just rampage time. Like they don't...
Isn't there one where Shango also kills everyone?
Yeah, he strikes his own palace with lightning and like kills half his wives and it's just... And then there's the one where he pretends that he's going to kill himself and then he comes back and like murders everyone. Some of that is covered by vengeance because they are also horrible, vengeful people. But they go to wars. They fight each other. It's a big thing they do. There's a whole one where Shango and Ogun like have to wave their dicks at each other and fight until they decide who's in charge, and it doesn't go well for anyone. Intellect, on the other hand, you're right. Oren Mila probably personally has intellect, because he is all about hidden knowledge and the sharing of knowledge through divination. But I can't think of anybody else in that pantheon that I would actually give intellect to. Like, as a cultural concept of we want to discover our destinies and follow them, I could see you saying that seems maybe like intellect because it looks like looking for information. But it's almost more devotion to destiny, to fate. It's not necessarily I want to know stuff like in a book learning sense.
Right.
And I don't know of anyone else that actually does that. In fact, Eshu spends a lot of his time intentionally fucking up the messages that the prophecy god sends through Oren Mila because he is a dick. Like, if he feels like he didn't get enough offerings, or he feels like the prophecy god saxed him this week, he'll just be like, I'm going to garble the message so that the people at the other end get wrong information.
Cool.
And dudes like Shango don't care at all. Alright. Could the Olympic Games be a birthright? It might sound stupid, we've discussed relic songs before and you have a Shinto shrine in your birthright PDF. Could Zeus get some cool bonuses from mortals who dedicate their victories in his honor?
Sure. I guess so. Oh, wait, you...
I do have a thing. So, this is actually a thing that we do a lot in our games that isn't on the site yet, so you wouldn't know about it. But when we have gods that have a cult that gives them fate bonds, there's often one event that's tied to their legend there that gives them extra bonuses. And so the Olympic Games might very well be that for Zeus. For example, when Aurora, as the goddess Vala, had a cult at Delphi, she could, if she went there and performed specific tasks and then gave an oracular prophecy, she would get some legend back and some virtue channels back, and that was like a thing that was attached to the fact that she had a cult there. So if Zeus has a cult that dedicates the Olympic Games in his name, it's entirely possible that whenever the Olympics happen, Zeus gets a bonus because his cult is active and doing a thing. Which is an interesting question whether that's happening now in the modern day,
Olympics,
when the modern Olympics aren't really dedicated to Zeus as much anymore, but they did come from his original cult. Depends on your storytelling preference, what he gets out of that. But yeah, so, I mean, if you're, obviously we're doing that, it's not on the site, so sorry about that. But that was definitely the way that I would have handled that. Yeah, because it's not really a birthright, it's not a thing that you own or that you have, or even like a person that you can talk to, but it is a thing attached to your legend, which is what we try to do with cults. Alright, this might be a weird question, but what are the likely political consequences when a Titan overpowers a pantheon? Political consequences.
Like, I don't have an answer for your question. What?
I mean, the other pantheon's gonna freak out? If a Titan takes out a whole pantheon, like they're all dead or in jail, like the other pantheons are going to... I mean, it depends on whether they liked that other pantheon, what happened exactly, whether they think it's worth it to try to help them, if they can be helped.
I don't think you know what political consequences mean. Because the same political consequences as if they all randomly drop dead. Like,
unless you're thinking of the Titan, now ruling that pantheon, which is not going to happen. Like, they might be in charge and be able to force that pantheon to do what they want, but other pantheons are not going to treat them like a legit ruler.
Right.
Like, if you have, like, Apep rolls in and manages to overpower all of the Netcher and then Egypt is in shambles, other pantheons aren't going to be like, well, we have to invite Netcher to our king meetings now. They're just going to be like, the Egyptians are out, keep fighting the Titans. Like,
yeah.
There's not going to be a political shift in that way.
So no political consequences. I don't think. You know, if this is your question and you meant something else, go ahead and write that down.
Yeah, let us know. How do you guys feel about making Titanrealms a 1 per purview deal? I'm having some problems choosing between 1 realm per pantheon and 1 purview per pantheon, and I can't decide which way of doing it I prefer. What do you think?
Okay, so I think you should err on the side of not 1 realm per pantheon.
Yes, I think...
You should err on the side of all the Titan realms exist, and there's probably some Titans from several pantheons in each Titan realm. Exactly. And they don't need to be 1v1ing all the time.
Yeah, the books set it up that way so that you can say if you're having everyone playing 1 pantheon, they just have 1 enemy, and it's very easy and clear. But practically that doesn't really work very well. Like, why would there be Greek Titans in this other pantheon, but they're ignoring the Greeks because that pantheon's in charge, someone else is in charge of it? Like, that doesn't really make any sense. And because the Titan realms represent, like, these primordial forces of the universe, you don't want to be inventing Titan realms that don't actually do that just because you need someone to fight a pantheon. Instead, say, look, who are this pantheon's actual enemies? If they're in several other Titan realms, then those are the enemies that are fighting them. It's okay if there's, like, a Darkness Titan and a Sun Titan and a Fire Titan that all fight this pantheon, even if they're not the enemy of that pantheon, because they are the enemies of that pantheon. So that, like,
I have no idea what you just said, but it seemed... I didn't, it did.
I'm saying that your pantheon's enemies are your pantheon's enemies in mythology. Either, if there's a concept they strongly hate, like the Egyptians hate darkness because it's their immemorial enemy, then that's great. But if there's not, and if you're just like, well, there's like a fire titan that doesn't like them, and there's like a water titan that doesn't like them, and neither realm is like their big enemy, that's okay to say, well, these are their enemies. These are the people that don't like them and will fight them. And that old thing in the book where they're like, well, the boss avatar of the realm gets to tell all the avatars what to do is kind of stupid. Like, there may be some of that, but I feel like Cronus may marshal a lot of the fertility realm, but when there's a Japanese avatar and the only people she's mad at are the Japanese pantheon, I don't see why she's going to ignore them and fight the Greeks just because Cronus wants her to.
Well, it's because there's like a war general thing, so...
Yes, in some cases.
Like, you
in
don't all... Yeah, I mean, like, they can't all, like, split up and go fight everything, like, chaotically, because they'll just lose.
I mean, that's true, but at the same time, maybe Cronus is a bad example, but for example, the other Darkness Titans. Like, Apep is not really much of a general figure. They may not all want to attack the Sun Boat every day. Some of them may back Apep up because they're like, we will win the overall war against the gods more that way. But sometimes Titan avatars are going to splinter off and go do what they do.
So I guess Anna and I disagree here. So you can take either of our answers. And I think that's all our questions for today?
Nope.
Okay, we have more.
We have more. My storyteller is planning to have my character marry her away as part of interpantheon politics.
Uh-huh.
I know how common a practice that's been through time. Is that something you've dealt with before? I want to know how gods use their children in the politics game now that it's expanded since the war started.
Lots of different ways. I mean, you could look at any kind of feudal nobility system and like that.
Yeah, like every culture has, as you said, most cultures have a history of using marriages advantageously for politics, and you can go read about, like, how did they do that in feudal Europe and use that as a basis for how the Aesir or the Tuatha are doing it, or how did they do it in ancient Mexico and use that as a basis for how the Aztecs might do it.
And then I would say probably intra-pantheon is probably more likely. Inter-pantheon marriages are probably fairly rare.
Yeah, the Pantheon wants to, there's a cat on my camera.
Yeah, I know, just keep going.
The Pantheon wants to shore up the Pantheon's power, make sure that they keep their power block, that they can fight off their enemies, that they get to eventually succeed. So they're less likely to marry you to someone outside your Pantheon, just because that kind of gives away one of their resources to that other person. They might do it if they think that will make the other Pantheon help them, but they can't necessarily depend on that happening. So you're more likely to get married to someone inside the Pantheon that, like, solidifies your parents' position than you are to get married to someone outside the Pantheon who might or might not actually be helpful. Either could happen, but...
Cool.
And then, among a handful of us, goddammit Strebog has become a touch mimetic. What the hell is he doing?
Okay, so Strebog in our games, in the god game, kind of shows up and harasses people and steals things.
I mean, he's Strubog, so the PCs kind of brought the Bogovi back into the war. They had been kind of sitting it out because they had their Titan under control, and they kind of went there and like blew stuff up and got all the Bogovi involved again. But a side effect of that was that Strubog then like decided they were his friends. Right.
Well, like Jeff is very charismatic and like used Strubog to kind of get him in to have talks with other people because Strubog was willing at the beginning to talk to them, and so because Jeff is very charismatic, Strubog is very much okay. Well, you're my friend now.
And that means I'm just going to go to your house.
I'm just going to hang out here all the time.
Mess up your house. I'm going to take your stuff because I am a god that steals things.
Yeah.
I'm going to harass women because I'm a god that does that, and I am not very smart, so I'm going to bother you constantly. But I am very good at like manipulation, so sometimes you can't make me go away.
Yeah.
So what Strubog is doing on a given day could be anything from like trashing Jeff's house to stealing Jeff's relics to showing up at an inconvenient time to pretending to be the nanny of Jeff's kids and teaching them weird stuff. Like he does whatever the mood takes him.
Yeah, so he does tons and tons of things, but often the PCs find it just inconvenient, whereas it's like a problem they made.
Yeah, they're kind of like, well, he's kind of dealing with Strubog's kind of the price of getting the Slavic gods back in here, so we're going to just deal with it.
There are always consequences to actions.
Yeah.
And the consequence of that was getting Strubog here most of the time.
Yeah, because the Bogovi don't really want him around much anyway, so... So yeah, Strubog, pain in the butt for everyone.
Glad you're saying damn it, Strubog, though. I don't know...
Yeah.
I don't know how you came up with that, but...
Well, people on the Twitter say God damn it, Strubog a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I guess that's everything for this week. Thanks for joining us.
This week.
Hopefully... Next time we have maybe some microphone. I don't know what the sound is going to be like on this. And then we'll work towards getting other stuff and purviews coming out.
Yep, we are working on purviews very hard. We're about to finish another one.
Yep.
Hopefully sometime soon. And, it's a long journey, but we're doing it as quickly as we can.
Yep.
And we're not ignoring other stuff, but it is the main focus right now just because it's what our PCs are using. We need it for our games, so.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great week.
All right, see you guys later. Bye.